Good morning. We take you through how markets performed all across Tuesday as well as how Asian markets have opened this Wednesday morning. The US Treasury yields have spiked and the US 10-year Treasury is now well past 1.5%. In fact, it hit 1.567% in trade on Tuesday. Now, this is the highest rate or yield rates that we've seen since June of this year. A lot of it due to the fact that the Federal Reserve's commentary talks of a taper, liquidity withdrawal, and markets have started factoring that in. All US indices across the board fell over 1%, with the Dow closing 1 2/3% lower in trade on Tuesday. The S&P 500 was down over 2% on Tuesday. The broader markets too were led lower, especially by tech stocks, Facebook, Microsoft, Alphabet, all of which lost 3% each. The Nasdaq was down around 2.8% in trade on Tuesday after falling 0.5% in trade on Monday. Mind you, this is the worst day for the Nasdaq since March this year, and it has fallen for a third consecutive day in a row. So third consecutive day of falls, and yet the fall is so steep that it is the largest fall since March this year. Moving on to European markets. European markets closed lower as tech stocks even in Europe continued to fall. The DAX was down over 2%. The FTSE was down around 0.5%, reversing Monday's gains, and the CAC 42 was down over 2.15% in trade, reversing all of last week's gains as well as Monday's gains as well. The Stock 600 was down around 2.18% in trade on Tuesday, down again for a second consecutive day of this week. The Stock 600 was the only index which was down on Monday in Europe. Moving on to Asia. Asia Pacific stocks also fell given that China's GDP forecasts by economists came in lower than anticipated. The Nikkei was down around 0.5% in trade yesterday. Surprisingly though, both the Shanghai and the Hang Seng were up. The Shanghai was up over 0.5% and the Hang Seng was up over 1/5% in trade on Tuesday. The ASX 200 closed around 1.5% lower though, and the Kospi 2 closed lower over 1% in trade yesterday. Asian stocks have started trade on Wednesday quite low given the global market cues. Globally, markets have fallen. US, European markets taking a cue from that. Even Asian markets have started off lower. The Nikkei is down over 1.8% early in trade today. The ASX 200 continues down over 1% in trade today. The Kospi is further lower by 1% in trade today, and the SGX Nifty futures, which was down around 0.75% in trade yesterday, is down a further 0.5% plus in early trade today. Moving on to how metals, oil and commodities are looking. The London Metal Index fell for a second consecutive day this week, marginally down just 3 basis points. Oil cooled off below the $75 a barrel mark, is currently at around $74.6 a barrel. Brent oil, which had jumped over the US $80 a barrel threshold, which is the highest in the last 3 years, is down around the $78.5 a barrel mark. Gold slumped as well. Gold was down around to $17.35 an ounce on the back of treasury yields rising. Copper was down around 1% in trade yesterday. Moving on to currencies and bonds, the dollar index rose for a third consecutive day yesterday, was up around 0.5% in trade. The dollar index currently is around 1 basis point lower in early trade. The US 10-year Treasury, as I mentioned, was at around 1.55% in early trade today. The Bitcoin was down around 3.5% in early trade today at the US dollar 41,500 mark. That's a roundup from our side. Thank you.